Hi, everyone. I'm so excited to be hosting a bar in depth for Listen Bar, the bar that I launched here in New York and that has now become so much more. I'm Lorelei Bandrovschi. I am the founder and CEO of Listen Bar, and I want to talk today about Listen Bar as a bar concept, our initial model, our approach to menu and staffing, as well as our expansion into new business models and revenue streams. So if you couldn't already tell by us being an alcohol-free bar, we've kind of broken the rules on what it means to be a bar, whether it's taking alcohol off the menu or going into like brand new things, whether it's on-demand content, education, and even research. So I hope all of that is going to be helpful to you today. So let me start first and introduce myself. My story is that I took a month off of alcohol on a dare and I loved it. So really Listen Bar started from a dare. And what happened was that I realized, oh my God, it's so great to go out without alcohol. And yet there are so few places where you can really do that. It really puts a lot of work on you as the guest, as opposed to all of the opportunities to go out drinking where you have hospitality really built around that. And so that was really the initial seed of the idea of Listen Bar, was that 1 month dare. And that sort of seed percolated over the course of several years until I was ready to embrace this concept and really bring Listen Bar to the world. In terms of who I was and am, I had just spent over a decade working in advertising and later in innovation consulting, which basically means that I was really good at building brands. I understood branding, I understood content. And then innovation consulting basically meant that I understood how to create new services, how to create new products, how to develop new business models. And all of that really rooted in what people call design thinking, which basically means really understanding the audience that you're trying to create something for. And so those were the skills that really informed my approach to Listen Bar, which is probably very different from people who go into it with more bar world experience. And in a way, that was a real opportunity for me because it allowed me to break a lot of rules from the get-go in terms of how things had to work. So what I would also add is that I'm an immigrant. So my journey was also that of working in a corporate world and then having a green card and having the ability to start my own business after having built that up. So that incubation period for Listen Bar was also, my journey into being able to be an entrepreneur legally as an immigrant. So what that meant was that I went from, working in the corporate world to freelancing to self-fund the first iteration of Listen Bar. So I had always kind of planned for Listen Bar to be crowdfunded. And what I realized was that, getting some great advice about what a successful crowdfunding campaign means, you really have to have a solid proof of concept. And so I realized that I needed to build up and self-fund that proof of concept. And so the first thing I did as a branding person when I decided that this was, an idea that I wanted to pursue as a business was to really start from understanding my brand, what I wanted Listen Bar to be. So Listen Bar was very clear in my head long before it ever existed in the real world. So I developed, the brand voice, our brand values, and sort of this mood board where I really thought about who are the people who want to come here? What is our concept? Why are people coming to Listen Bar? And that was really what I wanted to bring into existence, was this like fully formed vision of what Listen Bar could be. And one of the big things that I always say in terms of alcohol-free brands, and also, anything, but with alcohol-free brands, there's a real temptation to focus on what you're taking away, in this case, the alcohol. But I really wanted to focus on what brings people together. And so for Listen Bar, I decided that this was going to be music. You know, I always talk about like Listen Bar being music and conversation. That's really what we serve. And then it just so happens that the drinks are delicious. So music, why we're called Listen Bar, has always been a big part of our brand. And the origin story for that is that after I left the corporate world, I've been living in this very kind of Brooklyn hipster artist commune, um, kind of a cliche, but also amazing. And in there, you know, a lot of my roommates were musicians, and I would see people working at regular bars because, you know, there's easy flexible hours. If you want to tour, you can schedule around your band practice. It's a very like easy gig while you're also really pursuing your music. But it's also full of alcohol. You always have alcohol around you. If you're touring as a musician, you know, smaller bands often just get paid with like drink tickets, and even bigger bands always have a lot of alcohol everywhere in the green room, at the venues. I had people, you know, living with me who were working in music PR who felt like they had to go out and drink as part of their work. And so I really wanted to create a space that was centered around music, but wasn't necessarily centered around alcohol. Plus, this brought in, you know, all these cool new opportunities for musicians to share music from behind the bar, showing off like what they make, and bringing those like new fan discovery interactions into an alcohol-free space. And I know that, you know, musicians are really trying to find new ways to get discovered. And I wanted that to happen at Listen Bar. And on the flip side of providing all of these things for musicians, it also meant that there was this immediate icebreaker at Listen Bar, which is, what's that song that's playing? Or like, oh, what kind of music do you make? And personally, especially as a short woman, I find that going to bars can be very intimidating. Getting attention from a bartender can be intimidating. And sometimes you just want to have that like safe interaction to build rapport. So it felt like, oh, if this bar is going to be that much more intimidating in a way because you take away the alcohol that's supposed to loosen you up, we're going to bring in other forms that bond people, that make it easy, you know, to be shy and yet break the ice. That was the inspiration behind having music be a real Listen Bar. Then from that point, what I was doing while I was, you know, working my way up to having the money to fund the proof of concept was really growing our brand. And at that point, I had very little to work with, but I had my skills in branding, my skills in content. And so at first, Listen Bar was an Instagram account. That kind of painted the picture of what the bar would become. And I always kind of talk about incepting. I always was playing a big game of Inception because really at that point, before Listen Bar came on the scene, the idea of an alcohol-free bar was really shocking. You know, you'd get reactions like, a bar without alcohol, what's next? A restaurant without food? And things like that. So it was always kind of planting the seed as though Listen Bar already existed even before we poured our first drink. And so the Instagram was this place where we gave a little bit of a mood, we shared our voice, and it was bringing it to life so that people could discover it, tell their friends about it, and sort of build our audience. So at first it was just an Instagram with like simple website with like an email sign up, just so people would hear about it. But what's cool is that people did kind of hear about it and people did start sharing it. And, you know, our brand voice has always been pretty irreverent. You know, I could see at the time that the alcohol-free trend was growing, but it felt like it was sort of shrouded in this like wellness vibe where everything is very good for you and everything is very slow and kind of zen. And I felt like the things that I loved more about going out without drinking was being able to tap into my rowdy side in a way that actually felt better than when I was tipsy or drunk. And so I wanted the rowdiness of a fun night out to really be at the heart of Listen Bar. And so I think that's one of the things that people really connected with, that the voice really resonated. And another thing that I did early on was I wrote like a clickbait, like Medium article with like, here's 7 reasons why I'm opening a bar without alcohol. Again, it was this Inception strategy, like talking about it like it was already happening. But what ended up happening from there is that we got our first press. You know, we got a writer from Culture Trip who was interested in the concept and who first, you know, did our very, very first article. And so that was kind of the slow build. And then behind the scenes, it was really about finding the team and like building out the experience. And undoubtedly, menu was the hardest thing to crack. We went through rounds working with different people, trying to figure out like, these drinks have to be great. And it had to be what was missing from the experience of going out to many bars at the time. It had to be drinks that weren't just menu fillers, if even present. It had to be drinks that people want to have like 2 or 3 of in a row and that they feel satisfied by. And so that was a really high bar to set. And eventually ended up working with Eamon Rocky as our menu director. And that's when things really started to click, where the drinks really became at the level of deserving the name alcohol-free cocktails. Another thing that was really great, though, was that my approach to creating Listen Bar, because I had this whole idea of like who our audience was, I wanted to make sure that the drinks hit a lot of different palates and that they felt right in terms of like the occasions and the moods of a lot of different people that might resonate with our vibe. And so all of the drinks on the menu actually had like their own individual muse, whether it was someone in my extended circle or a celebrity, people who do or don't drink, but who kind of encapsulated the vibes of the people that I hoped to bring together at Listen Bar. And in order to kind of create this broader view of like what different people might enjoy, I got really excited about this idea of a collaborative menu and having different guest stars come in and create their own signature drinks that fit together on the menu. So that was also really exciting because at that point, working with Eamon, new doors opened and, you know, people came on, Aaron Polsky, Jack McGarry, Julia Momose, like amazing people who all really brought new perspective in terms of, you know, craft, established, famous bar world people signing off on, oh my God, yes, this is, you know, deserving. This is worth being its own place. And then that was really the longest thing, was like figuring out the menu. And then another thing that was important in terms of the menu, there were a couple of things that we did differently. And so first it was collaborations of different bartenders, but then we also had a consulting herbalist on our menu, because even though I didn't want this bar to be exclusively catered to, you know, the crowd that's interested in herbalism and like cool new ingredients and like mood boosting properties, I wanted it to be sort of a surprise for the people who are. So I didn't want to have it be like an intimidation factor if you're just looking for a fun night out. But if you are a person who's looking for those things, that was sort of a surprise and delight element to our menu, really thinking about, hey, can we look at herbs that can enhance, you know, like who this drink is about, like what the mood is designed to be with this. And then another trick aspect of our menu was that, so the drinks were being developed by these incredible mixologists from the bar world, but I wanted the bar itself and that like experience the night of to be really centered on these more dive bar, like musician bartender type interactions. And so there was this really different level between the craft of the recipe and like the type of service. You know, these Listen Bar is not a bar where typically you're gonna have, you know, craft bartenders serving a drink. It's gonna be musicians. And so we really looked at how we can deliver these delicious drinks that have that next level craft expertise, but that were often batched or that were often really sort of singing through the prep work rather than like what the difficulty is for serve concept, between how you think about, you know, what you want the drink to feel like, what you want it to taste like, and then how that interpersonal experience is when you're at the bar and how it's served. So that was really almost a year of building things up. Then eventually we found space. I was really going for a Sober October launch, which happened successfully in 2018. And it was this, okay, we found the space. Then we found brand partners, you know, really amazing brands. Obviously, Seedlip, who's been pioneering the space, they contributed with products. They contributed with like goods and help, like Kin Euphorics helped us with like coupe glasses for our launch. We borrowed a frozen drinks machine. Everything was kind of this patchwork of people who got really excited about the concept and really wanted to help. And this was another moment of inception. Like our proof of concept, you know, knowing that it would only be 5 days, I still invested in it as though this was for real. You know, we got like a official sign made. But at the same time, it was all like kind of with the idea that like, hey, this is a pop-up. So how can we step into a space and make it our own, but in a way where we can then travel? So things like signature lights, getting our own like neon sign made that has then traveled with us everywhere. It said good ass times. So that's sort of the first thing you see, is good ass times. So you kind of, your mind goes like, oh, this isn't, you know, a goody two shoes place for, you know, centering yourself and all that. No, this is still like a fun, rowdy, kind of raunchy place sometimes. And so that was a really big part of our launch, was investing in that environment and in that experience. And because it was always kind of planned around like a press season with Sober October, we got really big press like right out the gate. Right before we were like, team was there training, we're like trying to figure out the space, like the signs being installed. We got an email from the Wall Street Journal like, hey, we will put you in tomorrow's newspaper. And this, if you're launching a business or if you're growing a business, my biggest tip is when people ask you like, oh my God, that's so cool that you're doing that, how can I help? Like have 3 things that you're looking for that you're like, hey, by the way. So the only way that we got that press was because someone who didn't even know me, but was on our email list was like, hey, love this. Like, how can I help? And I was like, well, we need to like get the word out. And so she was like, oh, I have this like email list that you can send this to. Like, had no idea about PR, had no context anywhere. Nobody knew me. But we got this PR list from our guest or future guest, you know, and wrote a really wacky press release, was smack in like the middle of like Sober October, and sort of used like the, hey, can you believe it, a bar without alcohol angle to get like established press people really excited about us. And it worked. And so we launched on October 26th with like a packed house, and like it was incredible, because at that point I still didn't know like, okay, people are excited about this, but is it really gonna work? And it was amazing. And then our final party was a Halloween karaoke party that uh, people were dancing on tables, and it was just amazing. Like, people told me that they went to parties later that night where alcohol was served, and then they came back because ours was more fun. So really breaking those notions of like, oh, you can't do karaoke if you're not drunk, or like, oh, Halloween is for being extremely sloppy. No, we turned it into like, ball out, like completely, like go as wild as you want, and then feel amazing the next day. And it really resonated. So that was our first 5-day proof of concept. It worked. It was amazing. And then we had the content, like videos from our parties to put together a crowdfunding campaign. So at that point, we were like, okay, gonna go from, proof of concept into crowdfunding for a permanent space, because that felt like, here's a bar, like trajectory, And one thing that was really cool that we did, that at the time I didn't realize how big of a part it would become, is that we decided, let's do events while while the crowdfunding campaign is going on. And so we started this residency at a bar in East Village, much love to Von Bar, where we were there every Monday. And we just pitched it as like, hey, like, you've got this downstairs space, like Monday nights are quiet, a lot of people are going to come for this party. Here's the amazing press we just got. And so we kept building on every achievement to keep like building the brand and building out new experiences. And so that also brought some really cool learnings from that 5-day pop-up, because one of the things that we learned was menu. We had started out with this really expansive menu, wanted to show the world like, hey, there is so much more that the alcohol-free category can be than fancy lemonades and ginger beers. And so that was like, those were like forbidden off the menu. We didn't want anything to do with that. And there were so many other amazing drinks to showcase. But it turns out that people were also very, looking for guidance. And, there is such a thing as too much choice. So we had to like fine tune and find the perfect balance. And so we went back to a really focused menu, especially for like a nightly pop-up model, because we didn't want to like spend so much in like ingredients and prep hours, because we're a very premium place when it comes to that. And so it was really about fine tuning, getting the data from that proof of concept to see which drinks sold best, looking at like, okay, which drinks are the most profitable of those. And that was really how we solidified the menu into just like 7 signature drinks. Another thing that we did with the menu that I wanted to do from the get-go was that we were able to add nutrition information to the back, which was a really helpful way in terms of guiding people through the menu. Because even though a lot of people just want the tastiest drink, sometimes people do have dietary preferences or, like nutrition restrictions. And so seeing which drink is caffeine free, seeing which drink is low in refined sugars, all these different things, like we were able to bring into the back of the menu and have illustrated very like simply, graphically. And so that was another thing that we brought in a nutrition expert to consult on the menu so that we could give guests that information. Another thing that we did, what our first proof of concept, our model was just spreading the word. And then for our dry January residency, we started bringing in RSVPs. And at first I thought like, no, we've been hacked. There's no way there's 500 RSVPs, to our first event. But hey, it's New York, like people won't actually show up. Fast forward to like, our first night back, we had like 200 plus people in the bar, and it was just packed, and we couldn't believe it. I was just like, oh my God, like didn't even expect that at all. So that was a stepping stone into really identifying what was working really well. Also at this point, I'll say that our initial model was really about drink sales, which for a pop-up was a really difficult model financially. You know, it wasn't enough to break even though obviously like we had just started. So breaking even was a ways away. But you know, we wanted to see more in terms of, okay, what other revenue opportunities are there? So then, you know, as the crowdfunding campaign was really getting super successful, we raised like over $50,000 for our business. We then extended our residency because I realized that that was a huge opportunity for us, you know, in terms of what else those events could be. And so that's really what brought us into our updated business model, where it wasn't just about the drink sales. We were also doing tickets to our events, and we were going from like brand product donations to brand sponsorships, because of recognizing that the whole, you know, the whole alcohol-free space was really growing. You know, we were a part of a huge trend. We realized that we were bringing a lot of PR for these brands that had more of a product story. And, you know, this was all happening simultaneously with Ruby Warrington's book, Sober Curious. So a lot of people really wanted to have the conversation like, oh my God, what is this? And so we were the opportunity to put a face to that movement, to really, you know, show the energy of what that experience can be like. And so we recognize that one of the things that we could really, you know, profit from, you know, one of the things that we could really recognize as our strengths was this community that we had curated. You know, the fact that it was this fun, mostly millennial, but also, you know, very open in terms of age group, but it became this fascinating thing that people wanted to understand and be part of, and use for their own marketing purposes. So we started really leaning into PR, focusing on events, focusing on programming, you know, making each event, we were doing one event a month, making each event a PR event in its own, thinking about like what the press cycles are, what the brands are that are aligned with this. So we brought in different activities. You know, you talk about like lean in and lean back activities, like things where people could participate, like, you know, tattoo artists, but also like lean back, like things where people could just like experience and have their own conversations, like dominatrix lessons, always with a bit of that like good ass times, like edginess to it. And then that also translated into how we approach brand sponsorships within the alcohol-free space, but also beyond it. Like we hosted this millennial spa party where we built like a blanket fort as one of our like hidden activities, together with gravity blankets. So brand sponsorships became a bigger and bigger part of our business model. And this is also when we had like some really amazing, huge like PR hits. Like we were on Good Morning America, The Today Show. We were in the New York Times and on Fox News. You know, it was just everywhere. We even had Snoop Dogg's team reached out to us and got like a drink named after him. And so all these opportunities were then also then things that we could share with our brand partners. So the Snoop Dogg drink ended up being part of a really amazing partnership we've had with Liars. And so we created Smoked with Snoop as a drink that had Liars in it and was part of this signature event. And then from there, also one of the things that started happening is that people were asking us to, oh my God, like, where's your next event? Like, come here, come here. So we started doing events in different neighborhoods. And what was really cool about that is that because I come from this like consulting world, we've always had research as a big part of our culture and how we operate. And so We used data from a survey related to our crowdfunding campaign where people were voting on like which zip code they want us to open our permanent location in first. And so we used the data from those zip codes to pick like which neighborhoods to hit next and so forth. And then that really started opening up new types of partnerships and collaborations. So the New York Philharmonic started, talking to us about a partnership. Spotify wanted us to like throw their party. Hotels overseas were wanting to pay us, to bring our menu and to host a Listen Bar party there and sort of bring this energy and this following that we had built. And so that was really where we were. We were last March, we were on the brink of a world tour. Which is so funny to say in hindsight, because it's just like, it's like a cartoon of like someone being so naive to what's around the corner. But then yes, the world changed big time. And so, in-person events all of a sudden were canceled. A world tour felt like the farthest thing from reality. And we really shifted. And what's weird for us is that some of the things that had felt like hindrances, that were maybe rooting parts of my imposter syndrome of like, Listen Bar is a bar, but it doesn't have a physical location. All of a sudden, those things became opportunities. And it became something that made things easier for us in terms of pivoting and doing new things, because we had so much less overhead, so much less difficulties in a really difficult time. But I must recognize that for us, there were a lot of opportunities unlocked. So like many people, we started hosting virtual events. It was this funny coincidence of my little creative community here that I was quarantined with a musician and a photographer. So we kind of like put together like the Listen Bar in-person experience into these virtual events that were part hangout, like part cocktail class. And it kept people connected in a time where that was really important. But what was really cool from there was that those then became on-demand cocktail classes. So I would say overall, really the lesson of the past year for Listen Bar has been scalable opportunities, and passive income. So from those events that we were hosting that could have like brand partnerships in them and other opportunities, we also extended them out into an on-demand cocktail class and then an on-demand cocktail course where you get to learn all of the recipes from like the core Listen Bar menu. Now you get like a personal digital certificate when you get like the course. And it was just like a really cool way and a really helpful way to drive revenue without having to do anything extra. It's just about like, okay, let's bring that content into our website in a way where people can buy it. And then it's just like an email of the content links. Another thing that we did that has now become a really big part of our brand is that we expanded into thought leadership and extended this idea of education into an entire night shift incubator program. That's what it's called, Night Shift. So the idea of Night Shift was to build, a virtual course where people can develop their projects together in community. Because so often as entrepreneurs, we're really isolated. And, because Listen Bar has been sort of at the forefront of this movement, we're recognized as the people who have a lot of wisdom to share in this and have a lot of contacts along the way. And I'm a really big believer in having community as an entrepreneur. So that was really the launch of Night Shift. And then we were doing private parties, first like it was the virtual events, then we were doing like private parties for like different companies. But then we also like looked at some of our tentpole events and looked at how to reimagine them in a virtual way. So one thing that was really cool that, I can see having impact into how we'll do things in the future is that we did the Good AF Awards, which is our alcohol-free cocktail competition, where we bring together, like the best bars to compete on like what is their best alcohol-free cocktail. And for us, this was such a huge event in person. It was, one of our favorite nights when we did it in person, but we really wanted to bring it into a virtual format. And some of the things that we did with that was that, we asked participants to, almost embrace the to-go cocktail and to deliver drinks to the judges as to-go cocktails, but also to do, something for everyone who's attending at home, since they can't be, attending and tasting the way that they did at our events. Bartenders submitted sort of a simplified at-home recipe. And so then people were able to vote on their favorites, and everyone who attended was able to, really participate, learn, really get engaged, and have something with lasting values in these exclusive recipes. So that was one thing that was really cool, that even as, events might be in person in the future, I know that we'll always have a virtual component to the Good AF Awards probably from here on out, because it was so amazing to be able to tap into a much bigger audience than what we could fit into one room in one night. And, there's so many revenue opportunities with that. And then another thing in terms of like low overhead, easy things that we did was that we developed our bar shop. Basically, people are always asking myself and the team what the best alcohol-free products are. And we wanted to it's always about like a mutual exchange of value. So we wanted to help support our brand partners, to keep being this marketing vehicle for them, where people discover their brand through us, with like the Listen Bar seal of approval. And we also wanted like a really low overhead, simple way to capitalize on that. So our bar shop works as an affiliate shop, where our review and recommendation then links out to our brand partner's site to complete a purchase. So people are shopping on our site to discover what products they're into, but everything in terms of fulfillment and like shipment and all of that still happens on our brand partner side, which made it super easy for us to implement, and also like really successful in terms of discovery for customers who are looking for like, okay, like you as an expert, who do you recommend? And so because we've gone into all of these different directions, and we're going into even more, one thing that I would say, if you're thinking about expanding your business and trying to unlock different revenue streams, things that I would recommend is, first of all, really understanding your mission and how your goals can support it and support each other. So with Listen Bar, our mission is to rewrite nightlife beyond alcohol. We want nightlife to be drink optional, where you can drink, you cannot drink, and like whatever floats your boat, like, is groovy. But it might seem like, oh, how is a bar now? Well, after last year, maybe less so, because everyone's pivoting in so many different directions. But that made it a really good filter in terms of what makes sense for us to do. So everything, whether it's like the affiliate shop telling you what products to get, whether it's the classes helping you learn how to make cocktails, whether it's the events like bringing you and your community together, everything really ladders up to rewrite nightlife beyond alcohol. And everything kind of supports each other. Like our affiliate shop promotes our cocktail classes, and our cocktail classes promote our affiliate shop, and everything really hangs together. Another thing that we really kind of go off of is to look for what people are asking for from you. Like I would say that there's always suggestions for brand partnerships in our inbox. There's always people who want to be discovered under that Listen Bar seal of approval. So that's a really big opportunity in terms of revenue. You know, recognizing that we had in person, like that PR glow, how can we extend that online? So that's one of the big things that we do. And the last is really to look at cost versus ROI. So for instance, with private parties, we were doing private parties as long as it was low overhead, not requiring any kind of shipping cocktail kits or, you know, like pre-prepping ingredients, because that wasn't going to work for our model of like the type of drinks we made and like what we wanted to go into next. So it meant really looking for the opportunities that fit, like, okay, what's the bigger vision and where do we want to put our resources, where we're going to get, you know, the right return on investment. So with that, you know, one of the things that we're doing right now is really leaning into thought leadership as core for our brand. Because we don't have a physical location, we're spoiled in that there is very little pressure to go back to in-person events. And actually, I would say this has been a huge blessing for myself and the team, because we are really looking at like, okay, what is, for our business, what is our biggest next opportunity in terms of return on investment? And so we're really leaning heavily into thought leadership. And the way that that's going to come through is first with bringing back our night shift incubator. One of the things that we learned was that the first time around, we were saying this is a nightlife incubator. It's about different nightlife concepts around this idea of rewriting nightlife together. What we found is that everyone who participated, almost like to a T, was really also committed to rewriting nightlife beyond alcohol. And so our incubator is becoming more focused now, so that it's really about incubating alcohol-free businesses. But it's still with like the Listen Bar angle of a journey that's a little bit more around like personal transformation and business transformation woven together. So that's one of the things that's really exciting for us, because it's another opportunity to expand our relationships with our brand partners. It's also a really amazing opportunity to host the 7-week incubator and fit as many participants as we want. You know, there's no more caps on how many people you can fit into a space. And so it's really just about the strength of the applications and making it the most successful program it can be. So that's one thing that we're really excited about that can keep growing year to year. And then another thing that we're really excited about, I've mentioned a little bit about research and data. So I talk about how do what people ask for. Over the past, you know, nearly 3 years of doing Listen Bar, so many research companies have tapped me as like an expert interview in their research reports, because so many companies are trying to understand the alcohol-free movement. And, you know, that's wonderful. I'm always happy to contribute. But one of the things that I recognize is that the real money goes into those research agencies. Meanwhile, because of my background in innovation and the way that we've kind of kept our data collecting open, you know, we have a lot more information than any of these research agencies, and we have the capability to put together our own research report. And so at that point, rather than just being an expert interview in someone else's research report, we're able to release our own and, you know, really monetize that from the brands that are interested in understanding the space. So we might actually have the research report released by the time this airs, but that's really exciting because we're doing something that speaks to the world that we want to build and to our expertise, and is going to help us build new brand partnerships down the line. So yes, Drink Optional is our research report on the future of nightlife through the lens of the new mindsets and expectations of the rising sober curious crowd. So very, very excited to bring that out into the world. And really, like, obviously, like, these are unique to Listen Bar because we have, this like community that we can capitalize on. We have like this data and insight that we can capitalize on. But I think that there's a lot that can apply to other bars and business model in terms of looking for what's next. And for me, what I'm really excited about is that everything is really laying foundations for the next thing. And right now with thought leadership, we're really leaning into a more B2B space, but we're also constantly thinking about, okay, what's coming down the pipeline and how can we engage with our core community until then? So another thing that we're doing in the content space is that we're about to release an Instagram series that's called Good AF New York, that's recommending different places to go for alcohol-free drinks. And that's another way that we can, serve our guest who, even if they're not coming to our events, is looking for our expertise on where to go and experience the city without alcohol. We're also serving our brand partners when we spotlight drinks that feature their products. And we're also unlocking new opportunities. So that's the way that we approach, where we want to put our resources. And I'm really excited because what's coming next is even bigger and wilder and, more bar and bar breaking at the same time. So we're going to go further into content. We're going to go further into product by launching our own ready to drink products down the line. And so then that all comes back to, okay, how does the physical experience and the in-person event like fit into that model? Because recognizing that it can be such a challenging, like, difficult financially industry, it's about like, okay, how can that serve these other parts of, passive income so that the business really like hangs together and, brings its mission to life. So I hope that this has been helpful for you. It's really fun sharing this. I have so many more stories to share. And so I hope you follow in our next steps in our journey. Good luck in your journey. And if those journeys ever align, please hit me up. Thank you.